Mothers of America, this hour belongs to you. It's Mom Talk Radio with Maria Bailey.
I am super excited to have with me a mom who has basically she has done it all. She's been married on TLC TV. She's been an anchor and a producer, a reporter, and now she is an author of a new book, Expecting Perfect, My Bumpy Journey to Motherhood. And she is Nadine Bubeck, and she's joining us from Phoenix. So welcome, Nadine, to Mom Talk Radio.
Oh, Maria, I'm so excited to be on your show. Thank you for having me.
So tell me about, a lot of people write their pregnancy journal, and, they become a mom and they finally, they say, oh, it's time to write a book. Sure. Tell me kind of what's different about your pregnancy journal and the book.
Okay, here's what's different. I started writing when we began trying to get pregnant because I thought the whole thing was completely a mix of being comical and emotional and stressful, and we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. We did the whole thing. We honored those myths of putting your feet in the air after doing the deed, and, we did all that kind of fun stuff, and I wrote about it, and I documented our experience because I knew I wasn't the only one out there doing these silly things to hopefully conceive a baby. The good thing is obviously those myths worked for us because we got pregnant pretty easy, and I've always been a writer, but I've always been a type A crazy personality. So once I became pregnant, I became obsessed with doing everything right. Eating the right foods, sleeping on the right side, which is really the left side because it's better for your growing baby inside your belly, and just second-guessing everything I was doing because I wanted to do everything right. I did not want to compromise my pregnancy. So I wrote throughout that portion of my pregnancy because writing became my free form of therapy. I even continued writing throughout our baby moon. We went to Europe, and who would have thought my first trip out there would consist of no wine, but it did. I didn't even have a sip. And I wrote that entire time. But seriously, Maria, 2 days after I got back from the baby moon, I went to my 20-week appointment, and my doctor looked me in the eye, and she said, you have complete placenta previa. Your life is at risk. Yeah. Your life is at risk. Your baby's life is at risk. You're likely going to bleed. You will likely be on bed rest. You will likely be hospitalized. And most likely you will birth a preemie, all of which happened, Maria.
Oh, my gosh.
I wrote throughout the entire thing, and I wrote throughout my son's stay in the NICU. He was born 6 weeks early, and he spent 7 nights in the NICU, and I documented my entire journey. And at the end, I'm like, you know what? I need to make this public. I need people to read this and know that imperfection is okay, to embrace the experience regardless, knowing that the outcome, becoming a mother, is worth even the bumpiest ride.
Right.
So that's what I did, and I'm trying to help women know that they're not alone.
And how old is your son now?
My son now is 7 months. He was born 4 pounds, 11 ounces. Next time you're holding a 5-pound weight, my son was smaller than that. Luckily, he came out a fighter, and he did not need any help breathing because I got steroid shots to help him with his lung growth when I was hospitalized. And he came out being just fine. However, he needed some extra TLC. His temperature began to drop because he was too small to really keep it up on his own. He spent a night in the incubator. And, the NICU in itself, our experience there, was a blessing in disguise, even though it was an emotional roller coaster, just being in there with him. We all have the idea that pregnancy and delivery is supposed to be just picturesque, and sometimes it's not. But Nicholas now, 7 months, he's a rock star. He's doing fantastic, and he is glued to my hip, and he is the love of my life. I am that mom now.
Well, I kind of feel like we set ourselves up for failure when we become moms, because I always say this, particularly when a mom goes into their labor and delivery and they're like, this is my birthing plan, and I'm not going to deviate from my birthing plan, and I'm not going to have a C-section. Okay, first of all, you're doing something that you have never done before, and that no two births are exactly alike. So now let's say you get into that situation where you're choosing between your baby's life and having a C-section, and you have a C-section. Okay, now you come out and you feel like, somehow you failed because you had a C-section.
Right.
You know what I mean? I just think we just set ourselves up for these, quote, failures that aren't even failures.
It's so true. As women, we do that to ourselves. And let me tell you, I had to have a C-section because of my placenta previa. That wasn't a choice. But in my mind, before being diagnosed with placenta previa, I had everything planned out. I have always been a planner. I knew that it was just going to be a swift delivery. Everything would be fine. We'd go home the next day, done and done. I went from perfection, because the beginning of my pregnancy really was perfect. There was nothing wrong, to paranoia, and it all blew up in my face, and I had to surrender to not being in control. And that was, it was emotionally challenging. However, throughout the entire time, I was determined to stay positive and to stay sane and to stay peaceful, because if anything compromised my mentality or my body, I feared something could happen to my baby because I was watching my every move. I mean, with placenta previa, you are likely to bleed. And at 29 weeks, I bled. And we went to the hospital, and it was by far, to this day, I get tears in my, it was the scariest thing that's ever happened.
Well, it's not a scary thing to read your book. That's going to be an exciting thing. And I want to get this in before we run out of time. You can go to expectingperfect.com, and don't let Nadine scare you when you go to her website, because she is like a very attractive mother. You're not going to even believe she ever gave birth. She looks so good, but we won't hate you for that. But the book comes out soon, and expectingperfect.com is where you want to go to find out everything about Nadine and her online show and everything she's doing. And thank you so much for being with us.